Most people, after getting publicly condemned by a studio, banned from a convention, and called out across social media, would probably go quiet for a while. Plainrock did the opposite. Before getting into what happened next, here's the quick version of what started all of this, because if you missed the previous video, it matters for understanding how we got here. A few days ago, clips from the LevelUp Con 2026 started circulating showing Plainrock near the glitch booth, joking about a racial slur connected to a controversy that had already hit this community hard, one that involved Michael Kovac and Ashley Nichols, the voices of Jax and Zubul in the amazing digital circus, who had been caught in a 2019 livestream making a similar kind of joke. Plainrock filmed himself doing this and posted the video himself. Glitch responded fast, contacted convention staff, had him removed and permanently banned, and put out a statement that used the phrase dumb f***wit behavior, which tells you everything about the tone they were going for. The community largely backed Glitch, and then Plainrock opened Twitter again. His first move was to frame the whole situation as a problem with the fanbase rather than with anything he had done. He posted a tweet that read, "I now understand why Glitch and Gooseworx have to put out these statements phrased to the extreme. Their fanbase is so rabid that even though they both showed absolutely no subtlety to condemn me and other people, a lot of their fans still say it's not enough or bring up other old controversies they want them to address and apologize for. Never-ending cycle. Makes me feel barely any regret with how I've conducted myself all these years with what I've said or done. So all the annoying people left, and I've never had to grovel to apologize for dumb reasons, especially for small stuff that happened years ago. Even if my audience is dwindling, I would much rather have that than what they have to deal with. What good is unlimited money if it just brings you more problems? If I were them, I would just retire at this point for a happier ending. Thank you to those who choose to stay, and I will continue to make do however I please." There is a lot happening in that tweet. He is simultaneously dismissing what he did as small stuff, positioning himself as someone who is too principled to apologize, and advising Gooseworx and Glitch to retire from a convention he just got banned from. The logic there is doing a lot of heavy lifting, but the part that I think is worth pausing on is the line about feeling barely any regret, because the people his behavior pushes away are, in his words, the annoying ones. That is not someone who got caught in a moment and is trying to move past it. That is someone who is telling you exactly who they are. Then, Gooseworx posted something that was clearly directed at a different group of people entirely, and Plainrock decided it was about him. Gooseworx wrote, "I feel like I should say, if you think you're on my side by saying genuine racist, hateful things to black people in the fandom, then it is my personal belief that you should shoot yourself in the head with a gun." That tweet was aimed at people using Gooseworx's name as cover to send racist harassment to fans. It was not about Plainrock. He quoted it anyway and wrote, "Good thing I didn't do this. Only gave the purple cartoon rabbit a cool nickname. I would hope they're talking about someone else, otherwise anyone falsely accused with this horrific and violent rhetoric would feel unsafe." He is framing himself as falsely accused while quoting a tweet that was not even directed at him, and doing it with a smiling emoji energy that makes the whole thing feel even more deliberate. He knew what Gooseworx meant. He chose to insert himself into it anyway. But the tweet that I think says more than anything else he posted came without words. Plainrock uploaded a photo of himself holding a framed print of Glitch's official statement, the one condemning his behavior and announcing he had been removed and banned from LevelUp Con, posed like a trophy. He also addressed the ban itself directly, pointing to the part of Glitch's statement that said they had contacted LevelUp staff to take action and have them removed and permanently banned, and responded with, "Yes, I was able to tap in with my free creator badge tied to my username I got on day one. They didn't even care to disable it or couldn't." So, to summarize where things stand, he got publicly condemned, framed the statement as a keepsake, confirmed the ban did not actually stop him from being at the event, and posted about all of it himself. Whatever the original incident was, at this point, it is clear that the attention is part of the point for him. And that shift from someone who said something he should not have said to someone who is actively performing his indifference to the consequences is worth sitting with for a second, because it changes what this situation actually is. The original incident at the convention could have been read generously as a bad joke made by someone who did not think about where he was or who was around him. What came after does not leave much room for that reading. Framing a studio's condemnation of your behavior and displaying it like a prize is not the action of someone who made a mistake and moved on. It is a statement. It is him telling anyone paying attention that the rules this community operates by do not apply to him, that the outrage is entertainment, and that the more people react, the more he wins. There is a specific kind of confidence that comes from knowing your audience will stay regardless of what you do, and the tweet about his dwindling audience not bothering him because at least he does not have to apologize for anything makes that calculus completely explicit. He is not trying to be part of this community. He is using the reaction of this community as content for a different audience entirely, one that finds the outrage itself funny. That is a harder thing to respond to than a bad joke, because there is no apology coming, no moment of reflection to wait for, and no version of this that ends with accountability in any traditional sense. What there is a very clear picture of someone who decided that being the villain in someone else's fandom story was a more interesting identity than anything else available to him right now. Whether that says more about him or about the incentive structures of the internet in general is a question I do not have a clean answer to, but I think it is worth naming clearly before moving on. What makes all of this even more interesting to look back on is that several days before any of it happened at LevelUp Con, PlaneRock had already posted a tweet that read, "Excited to start this series I've heard so much about," with what appeared to be a reference to the amazing digital circus. No one knows for certain whether he actually intended to watch the show or whether it was just a way to get the fandom's attention before the convention even started. But in the context of everything that followed, it is hard not to see it differently than it might have seemed at first. What that tweet does, regardless of the intent behind it, is push a particular narrative about this fandom. When someone with any kind of platform does something like this and then signals interest in the property, the conversation inevitably shifts toward whether the community is overreacting, whether fans are being toxic, whether the fandom has a problem, and that framing is worth pushing back on because the people who responded to PlaneRock were not a mob looking for reasons to be angry. They were fans of a show who watched someone walk up to the booth representing that show at a public convention, say something they should not have said, and then spend the following days treating the whole thing like content. The reaction to that is not evidence of a toxic fandom. It is evidence of a fandom that knows the difference between a misunderstanding and a pattern of behavior and responded accordingly. The larger issue here is not really about PlaneRock as an individual, because at this point his behavior has been consistent enough that there is not much left to analyze. What is worth thinking about is what happens when someone decides that a community's reaction to them is more embarrassing than anything they actually did. That posture, the one where the problem is always the people calling you out rather than the thing you did to get called out, tends to calcify over time. It does not usually end with a moment of reflection. It ends with a framed tweet on a wall. Where this goes from here is genuinely hard to predict, partly because PlaneRock has made it clear he is not interested in closing the loop, and partly because every response, supportive or critical, keeps the cycle running in the way Irvy Curvy warned about when this first broke. What I do know is that none of what happened over these past few days, from the convention to the photo to the tweets, represents this community. The amazing digital circus fandom is made up of people who care about the show, the characters, and the people behind them. One person showing up to a booth with a camera and a bad joke does not change that, no matter how many times he posts about it. What do you think about how PlaneRock handled all of this after the initial incident? Do you think someone like this deserves any more attention, or is ignoring him the right move at this point? Drop it in the comments because I genuinely want to know where this community stands.